OK, let's talk some numbers, though. The average ball speed on the PGA Tour is 173 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Yours is between 180 and 185, generally.
I've topped out at 185.
You can get to 190, I'm told. That's equal to Rory McIlroy. I asked his coach earlier on, and he said between 184 and 189. So you're in that region.
Yeah.
How, at the age of 51, is that possible?
Because I'm hitting it hard. I'm breaking that psychological barrier. So if somebody wants to hit the ball, wants to get faster, they have to lose inhibition. So, like you've seen, I use speed sticks.
Yeah, tell me about the speed stick, because that's been part of the process, hasn't it?
Yeah. I've had these for years. I think I got them at the very development stage. This is an interesting one because it's counterbalanced, so I kind of bring this with me just as a nice training aid. But the idea is you're swinging a stick. OK, there's less resistance, so you will go faster. But there's no impact. There's no ball. So that means that a lot of people, it's the fear of missing the golf ball is the problem. It's the fear of hitting the golf ball in trouble is the problem that makes them slow down. So when you have nothing, clearly...
You got sucked in by the downdraft.
You feel faster. There's no inhibition to that. I can really go after it.
Padraig, you're 51.
Yeah, well, again, obviously, I would consider myself an elite athlete. And every athlete will risk everything in the moment. They don't... I'm going to go 100% because, maybe I could get injured, but I don't really... Like, if I get another 3 good years, does that... 3 really good years is better than having 10 average years. So I'm prepared to risk it. This wasp isn't going to sting me, is it?
I hope not.
I'll leave him be.
So, tell us a little bit more about how you use the speed sticks, how the club golfer at home could perhaps benefit from using a speed stick.
There's 2 things to it. Like, if you were a junior... OK, every junior's out there, parents are always thinking... I had to ban my parents from buying me gifts at Christmas to do with golf. Because they're always, once you're an elite player, you need something of a higher level. So rather than... I used to get a ping wedge or something like that at Christmas back in the day. But I would say buy them a monitor. There's a PRGR monitor. It's €240, I think, back home. And if you gave that to a kid, all a kid needs is feedback, nothing else. You wouldn't need to tell him a thing. Like, I wouldn't coach a kid. Give him the monitor. He'll go, oh, that swing doesn't go so fast. Oh, that swing is fast. Oh, that works. And, so feedback is probably the biggest key. So get a monitor. Secondly, for somebody anybody, once you start this, you'll gain initially. And then you kind of plateau. And that's when you need something like speed sticks, because speed sticks give you different programs, test your central nervous system. So speed sticks are what javelin throwers use. They didn't reinvent the wheel. So essentially what we found, javelin throwers work within 20% above to 20% of below their weight, and they throw up and down. So that's all speed sticks are. They've taken it from another sport. It has no inhibition, so you can swing away. Obviously, you've got to be careful. You've got to be reasonably fit to do this. But I would suggest, even at a minimum, most club golfers should spend a lot of time from some sort of where they feel elbow height, maybe shoulder height to here, and just get that nice whipping sound. And what's interesting when I do that, I can keep the club going back and forth. If you start a golf swing, a backswing from up here, it's amazing how much you stay on plane. Mm-hmm. So people who struggle with their golf swing, it's kind of hard to get the club away from here. But you watch a lot of pros when they're standing around, they just push the club forward and back. So a great drill, just half swings. And look, I'm saying half swings in my head, they probably go longer. OK, but it's lots of hands in that. That's another thing. If you think you can swing the club to your maximum capacity and not use part of your body, well, you're a fool. So if you think you should not use your hands, that's crazy. This is going to generate the most speed. And again, if you're talking amateur golfers, who are hitting the ball, 220 in the air, they're not hitting it that crooked. Use your hands. You'll hit it straighter. You'll be able to hit draws and fades by using your hands, but just use your hands. Let your hands swing the club and your body follow. Whereas if you were teaching a junior player, you teach him to use his body and let his hands follow. But once you're not playing every day of the week, you're much better off let your hands swing the club, square it up, rotate it for a draw, hit it under for a fade, whatever you want. Your hands can do it, and your body will follow. So definitely for somebody who is not practicing every day, probably the worst thing you see in pro-ams is amateurs who think they can get speed by turning. Okay, and if you watch the fastest player, Min Woo Lee is my favorite, absolute favorite. So when he's hitting the golf ball, like he's come down, he's opened up that hip. This leg is coming back, but his body is still shut at this point. Amateurs are like this. You've no speed here, you're going to flash across it. You actually, believe it or not, you can turn as much as you like through, but your shoulders should be pretty much, is it 10 degrees open? But for amateurs, they should think their shoulders should be actually pretty square at impact. This can be open, this can rotate, but most amateurs, they should definitely not think of opening up, because you open up, unless you're really practicing every day and you can time that move. And even then, as I said, Min Woo Lee, like, he's a slight guy. He's like crushing it out there, mid 190s. And like, again, it's just unbelievable how much he's got that open. But again, this...
Holding that angle, yeah.
But we used to call it holding the angle and releasing. But in the end of the day, it's actually the body, the shoulders are still shut.
Yeah.
This is probably the biggest mistake an amateur can make by getting open. So and again, most amateurs think turn.